All right, guys, we are going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson's versus They Them Feminist debate on religious marriages. Let's jump in, guys.
I mean, when we look at people's happiness in their relationships versus like the comparison with the amount of people that they've had intimate relationships with, there tends to be a lot of variation in the long-term happiness or success of a relationship.
Is that in marriages?
I'm sorry?
You mean like marriages?
I believe the last time I looked at the statistics, it was looking at people who were in marriages. So on the lower end of the spectrum, if you tended to have less bodies, and I believe the number is somewhere between like 1 to 3, you tended to have less successful marriages. And then as those numbers kind of get up a little bit and a little bit, those are where you kind of, it stabilizes, you get like more happy, more successful marriages or relationships. And don't cite me on the marriages thing. It could just be relationships. It's been a while since I've looked at that data. But then on the other end, where you get into the, the higher numbers, what people would call more extreme numbers, more, more promiscuous people, their marriages also tend to be less happy. So on both ends of the extremes, you tend to have less happy marriages. And then somewhere in the middle, you tend to have, more happier marriages or relationships. Those relationships are more successful.
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with what you're citing. I think, now, again, don't quote me either because we don't have the data in front of us, but right. I believe that this was based around marriage. And now, you're not talking about Pew. You're talking about, I think there's a specific study on that. I just can't think of what it is. I'm sure we could pull it up or have Brian pull it up. But did this account for secular versus non-secular marriages?
For what? Sorry, what was the word?
Secular versus non-secular. So like religious marriages versus non-religious.
I wouldn't know. We'd have to look at the data.
Yeah.
Because once again, I'm not even sure if they were talking about marriages.
Well, can we agree that at least according to modern data and including Pew Research did a bunch on this as well, that people who are in highly religious marriages, they tend to divorce less than people who are not in highly religious marriages.
Sure. Yeah. There might be factors that account for that. Like maybe it's looked down upon in their culture to get divorced, even if you're going through something difficult like abuse. Because just to get clear on this, you think that people who are being abused should leave their partner, right?
How in the hell we got into that point?
Depending on...
how we got to that point? Marriages and, to abuse. Like... This is very interesting. We had to get to that point right away, huh? She doesn't even... Oh, man, this is... crazy. But again, you're not dealing with people that are looking to really defend the truth here, guys. Andrew's not debating here with people that are here to defend the truth. Only to push their agenda.
Severity, not necessarily the first order. But if there's, depending on severity.
Do you think that people who are being physically abused should leave their partners?
Again, it would
same answer?
It would depend on severity.
Okay. So you think even if there is physical abuse present that someone should
stay? Yeah, I think that two people can get drunk, right? And like a woman can smack a dude in the back of the head. That would be considered physical abuse and then just never do it again the rest of her life. I'm not going to tell that woman to like run out on her marriage.
Okay.
Right? I don't, or tell that guy like,
she was not expecting that.
She
was talking abuse about a guy showing karate to his wife. You know what I'm saying? Practicing karate with his wife. She was thinking from that position, but when Andrew flipped it, because Andrew knew what she was trying to convey, she all of a sudden she had a little bit of this conscious of dissonance. Oh, hold up. Oh yeah, females can hit. Yeah, wife can hit husbands as well.
Something like that. Or here's another thing that's really common. So you see this in just normal relationships all the time. Like a guy will make a snide comment and like, let's say they're watching a movie or something. He'll make a snide comment and the woman will kind of like smack him on the arm, you know what I mean? Or something like that.
Right.
Is that physical abuse? No. I guess it could be considered that. Not. So, but it's severity. It's up to severity.
I don't know that I would call it in a case of abuse. Like if you were messing around with your wife and she like smacked you upside the head as a joke, I don't think you would call that abuse.
So determined by who?
I don't think
I
most
wouldn't
people
call
would
it
be.
abuse.
Exactly.
Okay, so just for the sake of this conversation, actions that weren't intended to be
Again, I think it
harmful
depends on severity.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think for the sake of this, we can exclude those cases. We can exclude the cases where someone just like
I still think
jokingly pushes you.
I still think that it would depend on severity. Like, I also think a woman can get really, really upset, and one time she slapped her husband because she was so upset. Or let's say she threw a plate across the room and it broke.
Okay.
You know, something like that. I think that there's some of these things are pardonable and you can work past them. I don't think that those are necessarily they could be red flags for sure, but I'm not going to tell a person that they need to give up on their marriage over them.
Sure. Do you think most cases of abuse are worthy of kind of divorcing your partner? Just out of curiosity.
Well, like physical abuse, maybe. What is
Right.
considered emotional abuse, probably not.
Right. We can exclude it to, like persistent emotional abuse would be something you would say you should probably end a relationship over, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We can agree
Wait,
there.
persistent emotional abuse? Depending on how it's categorized.
What do you mean how it's categorized?
There we go. Got it. I was about to ask the same question. What do you mean by emotional abuse? What do you mean? Like telling no to your woman? No, don't spend money on the credit card. This is what they categorize as emotional abuse, guys.
Well, it depends on how you would categorize emotional abuse. It's very evasive.
Yep.
Okay, I mean that's fine, but we can just say like you think that the most times when people get divorced over emotional abuse, they're usually talking about those like severe cases, right? Like they're talking about like
No.
persistent.
No, I'm not. I'm
Interesting.
not at all convinced that when people say they're, especially women, that they're getting a divorce based on emotional abuse, that there was anything other than just she just wasn't happy based on other circumstances. They called it emotional abuse because it's such a nebulous term.
Okay, that's fine. I might actually be fine with that. I think there's a problem with psychology where the average person has adopted terms that are specific psychological terms.
Like narcissist?
Everyone's a narcissist now. Everyone has autism now. Everyone is, BPD now. So whatever term. Everyone's gaslighting everyone. I understand that. I think there is some truth to that. And to the extent that there is truth to that, it should be like handled and understood by people generally. But I would say in a lot of cases, that's the case where you have like severe emotional, what you would categorize, we can just use whatever your standard is.
For severe emotional abuse.
Sure, yeah. Whatever your standard is for severe emotional abuse and severe physical abuse, you would think that would be more likely to be covered up in, let's say, like religious families, right?
No,
Where there's...
I don't think it's more likely. In fact, I think that the reason it works is because you're more likely to get help. So because you have an ecclesiastical structure and traditional church functions,
Shame
you
is
have a
very
community
strong.
which is there that's able to actually assist inside of these relationships for these problems that come up, whereas a lot of other people don't have resources or they have secular resources. So
you think that... Okay, I mean, maybe that's like an empirical claim, once again, because it's kind of hard to just say that like, oh...
Well, there's a lot of good evidence for this. So the fact of the matter is that you would just logically agree with this probably, that if you have community which you can turn to for assistance in your marriage, that's probably better than not having a community to turn to for assistance in your marriage.
Yeah,
Like,
of
that's
course,
probably always the case.
But if that community reinforces ideas that like, men are supposed to have power over women and in sometimes a physical sense.
That shouldn't
in the
be
same way.
problematic if within the view of the religion, both partners believe that.
Right. Sorry. I'm going to wait for him to...
She, you know what's crazy? Let's talk about that. She's pushing back on this idea because it's Christianity. But I can guarantee you guys, she would never push back if we're talking about another religion, guys. I can guarantee you. I can put my the YouTube money that I make here, which is almost nothing, like $100. I can put in the line that she would not push back in the other religions, guys. I guarantee you. It's just the Western man, the European, just to put it that way, has just cocked himself out of this conversation, man. At some point, we just have to just go through the wall, man. Just go through the wall like a bull, man. Just keep moving forward, and just at some point we have to say enough. Because I genuinely think this type of conversation sometimes it's just a small screen to just distract you. We already know the formula that works. Patriarchy works to protection of women and children. All right. Secondly, when we don't take those ideas into consideration, we get invaded. We get deleted, right? The family structure go to hell. Like a lot of these things, when we take the religion out of the equation, not only other religions will come in and just take that vacuum, but we just go through degenerate behavior, which is just clear. We just seen it. We've seen it. This is why we are here. We already know what works. We need to simply just move forward. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.